Good morning and welcome to this Milan Fashion Week Roundup panel. I'm Mimma Viglezio and I'm guest chairing this morning. So we're going to talk about Milan with my panel that I let introduce.
Hi, I'm Harriet Quick. I'm an editor and journalist and I'm a contributing editor to British Vogue.
I'm Lara Johnson-Wheeler. I'm a writer and I'm editorial assistant here at SHOWstudio.
And I'm Trino Verkade. I'm CEO of Saraband and previously a Queen, Tom Brown, American Chancery.
So first of all, welcome Lara for your
Thank you, Mimma.
first panel ever. We're going to talk about a Milan week that I personally think was rather interesting, probably more interesting than usual for some newcomers, some new designers at older brands, and some interesting thing that happened. First of all, we cannot start without mentioning the Versace surprise. That was the talk in town and in the other towns as well. Donatella commiserated or celebrated the anniversary of the death of her brother Gianni, 20 years, by bringing back on her catwalk 4 of his supermodels of the time with this tableau that reminded of what they did exactly, probably, I don't know, 22 years before. So Claudia Schiffer, Cindy Crawford,
Naomi.
Helena Christensen, and
Naomi
here, and Naomi, of course, appeared on stage at the end, behind a curtain that opened. They were in the pose, and they came out with those golden dress. And apparently, I wasn't there, but apparently, it was really a big moment of emotion for everybody, even those that are probably a little bit full of prejudice. It was incredible. What I thought about the show, that was a total greatest hits of what Gianni did before her, in a very interesting way, because she made those clothes somehow relevant again. What was very interesting is that it was looking beautiful and relevant, yet, and I would like your take on this, it showed that what Gianni did, it's a little bit unbeatable. I think it's still stronger today than what she can do. I mean, she's done an amazing job. The company is still going strong. It was an amazing tribute. However, when you remember what her brother did, you can look at it and say, that was so much stronger. Then before going on what I want to say, I would like you to tell me, all of you, to tell me if you agree or disagree or...
Well, we were talking about this just before the panel started, and how it's great for any brand to really look at what they do and to celebrate it. And this was a celebration of the brand, whether it marked a death or not. Absolutely. It was an absolute celebration. It was upbeat. There was nothing kind of dark or sad about it. This was like, look how amazing, look what we did, and look how amazing it was. And there was such a lot of energy and good feeling about it. When you talk about being relevant, I think that's also what makes it so relevant, is it Absolutely. The energy was so upbeat. I mean, most of the clothes that we see, what makes it relevant or not? It's just that you're in the mood to wear it and you have a good feeling about the brand. And I think it brought back a good feeling about the brand.
It's an extremely good point, because I think that, as we were saying, you can do anything. If you do it with pleasure and with the self-assurance, then who cares if it was there 20 years ago? And when you end the show with George Michael, freedom, you know, it brings back, even in very young people that were not around at the time, it brings back so much that it can only be great. What do you think, Harriet?
I think it's an amazing moment, and I think this collection looks so desirable. And
were you there?
No, I wasn't there, but it kind of resonates through YouTube, doesn't it? You were just virtually there. And to have that kind of, you know, celebration. And I think also back, you know, 20 years ago, the fashion landscape was so utterly different. You know, it was sort of in Milan, it seemed to be always Versace pitched against Armani, and there were 2 camps, and now consider the brands, the many, many, many brands around the world who are all vying for attention. So I think it's amazing that they really created that moment and became the collection of the season. I think people will want to buy those pieces because they're almost like a souvenir.
Yeah, I think they will, a souvenir, and it was probably the most Instagram moment of the whole decade, not even the season. So what did it tell you?
I think it's funny that you say that it felt like a souvenir, because I felt like this show celebrated those really cool concepts that I always associated with Versace, and seeing some of those pieces, those looks, they felt like souvenir pieces, almost something that I'd want to buy on eBay or something, looking for a Versace piece, but brought back into this Spring/Summer 18
So would you buy it? Would you wear it?
I think that it makes me want to wear a similar piece to that again.
Okay.
And I mean, I think Versace is beyond my market, and I think that I'm aware of that, but I think that it brings back that look, and it brought back into, you know, the relevance of my mind and what I'd be shopping for and looking for.
It's interesting.
And I don't think I've seen that before, really, with what they're doing.
That's very interesting, and it brings me to one of my second points that Trino mentioned a little bit, is that I think that especially the biggest brand, including Prada and Armani, they sort of came out with their greatest hits, and it's as if in all of what happened in the fashion industry in the past, let's say 2 years or 3 years, you know, the Vetements and Gucci moments, then they came out and they said, hey, hold on a minute, we were there before, this is what we've done. You know, Miuccia saying, I've done ugly and pretty all my life, you don't need to come out and invent it. And Armani saying, I've done, you know, androgynous and minimal before. So it was as if they were coming out and reclaiming their spot, their place in the spotlight, right?
Yeah, I mean, a very good decision too, to kind of, you know, define and outline, because it's, you know, it's a game of survival in fashion right now, isn't it? You know.
Completely.
But those those Vogue pieces, the ones that, I think that was interesting, 'cause people are talking about Vogue again, particularly in the UK with Edward Enfield coming in, and that felt like I felt like that was something that was consciously done, and it was aware of that, to bring back those archive pieces.
You mean from the brands? Sorry, can you define what you mean by the Vogue pieces?
I mean, the pieces that had the Vogue prints on them.
Okay.
The archive pieces that were and they were everywhere. I felt like I saw those everywhere on Instagram, flicking through, and people were celebrating that again. And I think, I don't know, I felt that was nice. I felt I felt connected to that in a way.
Yeah, but my thing here is that, you know, we've seen recently, and we're going to talk about the one in Milan, we've seen the surge of a few new designers in all brands or in new brands, and they really are changing the way we dress and are becoming very successful press-wise and commercially. But then you have these people that have made fashion in the past 2-3 decades that are like, you're not inventing anything. I mean, you're reinventing it, you're making it relevant again, but we were there before. And that's what I think is rather interesting.
I think people really now, with so much noise going on, they need to own their own world. They need to own it and stop looking around what everybody else is doing, because, again, we had a little conversation earlier, there are brands out there that are doing collections that are not on trend. We know the success, and I know you want to touch on Gucci in a minute. We know the success of some of the really big brands right now, such as Gucci, Balenciaga. We know that that's great, but there are brands out there and they just do what they do, and they're keeping at it, and they're solid, and they're also growing. They're growing, they're just not growing at this huge, big explosion of what's in fashion, but they're growing because they just do what they do. And there's still a market, you know. I'm that person who, it doesn't matter how, you know, I feel very fond now of Versace, having seen the show. I'm not going to be buying Versace because I've never been buying Versace in my life. It's not my look, but I feel very fond of it now, and I feel very positive about it, which resonates to everybody.
Yeah.
That's important, because for brands to have people saying, it's not my look, but I love you.
Yeah.
I thank you for that. I feel fond. It's so important.
I really agree with you there. I don't think I'm a Versace customer, but I felt a fondness for that brand, and I felt like a sense that I enjoyed what they were doing.
Yeah, we all liked Donatella a little bit more, right?
Yes.
I even think she's looking better. I felt like she stopped doing things to her face. I know this is probably not relevant, but I don't know if it's because I was so, you know, happy about this that I looked at her and I'm like, oh, she's looking better. Yeah. Didn't she?
Yeah, she looked confident, I think.
Yeah, she looked confident.
Wasn't it great to see probably 50-year-old models on the catwalk?
Oh God, it was so good.
Yeah.
They're not yet 50, they're approaching, yeah.
Well, I don't know, they looked very good. I mean,
They look what?
They looked very good.
Oh, they looked amazing.
I mean, I was at one point, I'm like, wow.
And there's no makeup or you know.
Those bodies are their bodies.
They look incredible, and they are real women. I mean, there are some real women, young real women now on catwalks, but these 5 actually. Who didn't we mention? Who did
Carla Bruni?
Oh, Carla Bruni, yes, of course. These 5 women are real women, and that was so.
They used all the young models as well. You know, they used all the young models. They had Cindy's daughter on there. They had, you know, they were...
She's very young, though. I think she's very skinny and very young. I mean, she's beautiful, and she has this walk. She walks better than her mom ever did. But I think...
But that's Versace covering all bases, saying, we are modern. Look at us, we are modern. Look at what we stand for, but look at us now, we're modern. We've got, like, you know...
Yeah. No, it was a great moment, and yeah, we are very grateful to Donatella to do it, and she also said in the press, it took me all this time to be able to actually acknowledge it. It's been very hard, not only the grieving of the loss, but also the taking over, the trying not to be him, to do better, to continue with all the problems Versace has gone through. Now Versace is obviously in a good place, and she's obviously in a good place, and she could do it, and it was a great moment of the whole month.
And it's a great moment of clarity for Versace, because perhaps there will be that key appointment made soon in terms of a new creative director.
I don't think that they want.
Well, maybe
No, I don't
we're
think
good as we are.
I think she decided,
No, I think they're...
you know what, I can still do it, right?
I think they're looking. I think they're looking.
I know you've got some inside information I didn't dare saying, but I know you're very close to the CEO.
I don't have any, I don't have any
Can't
updates.
tell you.
I don't have any
Can't.
updates, but I felt they're still looking. I mean, even from the rumours that you hear just generally around. But finding somebody to fill that, fill those shoes.
Today, I wouldn't want to.
Yeah.
No, Ricardo.
After that, maybe that's not needed. She filled that. I felt.
But how often can you do that show?
Yeah,
It's a
maybe.
one-off.
Exactly.
No,
It's a
once,
one-off.
but maybe, you know, she, as Harriet just said, she has found again confidence, and that can be in the next show, you know, even if it's not looking back. It's now I showed you, I told you, I made my peace with it, let's move on. I don't know. I have the feeling that it's not happening anytime soon, but, you know, whatever, I don't know anything, so it can happen tomorrow. And I'm like, oh, sorry, I just said the opposite. Whatever. So yeah, let's go into the rest, and I would like to talk about the big ones before going into the new turf of Milan. So yeah, Gucci, we cannot not talk about Gucci. Everybody knows I'm very positive about Gucci, but I'm talking about Gucci here because yesterday they announced half year, what month are we? No, yeah, the first half of the year result, and Gucci sales are growing 49.9%. So we can like it or not, but it's obviously working because such a result in such an economy is really quite amazing. And Kering is doing like 30% growth in such a time, thanks to Gucci, Saint Laurent, and Balenciaga. And so it's a very good place to start. And again, you know, people say Gucci done more of the same. I would say more of the same marvel, because I still think that this is fashion liberated. You can wear whatever you want, the way you want. That's Alessandro's take, but then you buy and you do whatever you want with it, and I think that's right. Are we in agreement with Gucci, or we hate Gucci here? You know, Gucci
I love it.
both.
I mean, I kind of look at the collection, you think it's so overwhelming.
It's too much.
It's too much, but that's the point, isn't it? You can't strip it apart. It doesn't fit into one box. And I was thinking, God, how amazing must it be to be a customer, not necessarily buying online, but I think going into the Gucci store and having a great sales assistant really know the product inside out and figure out from that treasure box of designs, hey, maybe you'd like to wear a brocade suit, or
maybe
it's about
black trousers, yeah.
Or black, and there'd always be something that felt right and that felt exciting to put on, and that only promises to have quite a long life in your wardrobe, because it doesn't really date, does it?
It doesn't, because it comes back.
Michelle's first collection in the shop now, and it works.
Yeah, yeah. The reason I have I have one dress of his collection, and I've seen they made it a jacket and a suit in the same print, which makes the dress that it's 2.5 years old relevant. But apart from that it's a, you know, the young designer, they're doing that a lot. But I think the most important thing is that you go into the store and there's something for everybody. Commercially,
Yeah.
that's a genius idea. And 49% growth shows that I'm not that wrong.
They're delivering on every level. I mean, the press love it because the shows give them so much content. You know, I mean, you look at the shows and like I say, it's consistent, but there's so much going on. You've got hair, you've got makeup, you've got the styling, you've got the visual impact of clothes, embroidery, prints, everything put on. But when it comes down to the merchandise in the store, the price points are key. They know exactly what they're doing. They're delivering on quality, price, value. They are, you know, you don't get those kind of results just by being a hot brand. You get those kind of results by being a hot brand who has, like you say, delivered for everybody to go in. We're going to find it hard to go and find a piece of Versace to buy, probably, but you probably can go and find, if you're not a Gucci person, you can go and find like a really beautiful, I would definitely wear brocade, I'd definitely wear, you know, something which isn't as labelled. And they're doing it. They're doing
That's
everything.
very well said, Trino, and I thank you for saying that, because, again, you know, I think it's not only about being the hot new designer and so everybody then is trying to copy, you know, whatever he does. It's also about knowing what you do when it comes to the store, when it comes to merchandising, when it comes to pricing. And people say Gucci is very, very expensive. Of course, those hand-embroidered long gowns are 30 grand. But the trousers in color, and they're very well cut, they're not cheap.
No.
But they're in the 400, 500, I mean, they're much less expensive than Celine.
They're at the price point they need to be at. Yeah. They've really,
exactly.
You can buy a piece of knitwear for under £500. You can buy a pair of trousers for, you know, they've got that part of the business completely in line with the brand.
Young people are also saving up to buy Gucci right now.
Well, that's a good point, because I read in the same article that was giving the result is that the millennial, how they analyze them, clients buying on Gucci online grew 100%, not 49.9. So they are attracting a huge amount of new customer, and that's,
but that doesn't
again,
surprise me either. And it's not just that people are saving up for that one thing now. Young people, I think, want to buy into the whole thing with the styling. You don't just want the one Gucci loafer that you're going to wear forever. They want now to have the purse and then to wear something brocade with it. People want to buy into the look that a show like this gives. And this might, I don't know, it might be an overblown statement, but I really do feel that Gucci is the big show that is transferable in London. And I see that in London. I actually feel like I see some of these looks, as excessive as they are, in places I'm walking around.
especially because if you go to Topshop today, it's all about
there.
Gucci.
Yeah, sure.
You can buy a fake Gucci look from head to toe, which means it sells.
But we can probably find some old things in our wardrobe that we can put together as well. I mean, I love a bit brocade from McQueen. I can bring out an old McQueen brocade, and I mean, it's, you know.
Someone might ask you, is that new?
Yeah, and I'm like, it's like 18 years old.
It's funny you say that, because I have brought out some things that I hadn't worn for many years, and they probably don't even look like Gucci, but it's like this thing that makes me allowed to re-wear some things that I had forgotten, because everything goes.
Well, yeah, it feels like the rules have shifted a bit. Yep. You're allowed to put those things together and like wear those big glasses that, I don't know, you might have felt a bit intimidated by before. Yeah. And you feel that.
And what does your generation think? Do you think it's a good thing? Do you think it's finally it happened, or you don't care? Or I
don't know if it feels like it's a good or a bad thing, but I do think people today, I mean, particularly in London, we're in this slight bubble where you do feel more free, but I think you do feel an ability to feel a bit freer with what you're throwing on. Like, it's fine to clash these two brocade prints, and like a bag that you'd sling around your shoulder would be put around and worn like up on your chest. That feels, yeah, those rules are broken. And I think Alessandro Michele has a lot to do with that. And I think
it probably has influenced also the other brands.
Yeah.
Also the big brands, you know.
Very much in the terms of presentation, I think. Because if you're looking at perhaps, Marni's always had an eclectic feel, but there are many shows with a very eccentric, eclectic presentation that's not easy, again, to kind of just put down into like a box of four trends, because it's all going on. And I think it's a very clever way of giving the show an afterlife and a new invitation to discover it at the time it lands in the retail space, because it hasn't been, stripped and explained to death in an instant, because it can't be.
Yeah, it can't
So
be.
it's deliberately obfuscates, if you see what I mean.
It's very
and
interesting.
And I think that way of presentation has a really strong meaning at this moment of time, when there is a fear that, damn, it's shown, it's explained, people are bored,
Yeah.
It's difficult to be bored of this, isn't it? Because there's layers and layers and layers of items and ideas and...
Yeah, they're keeping, sorry.
No, go ahead.
But also with Gucci, they're keeping people's interest peaked, not just with the clothes that they're putting out. They're doing all of these different collaborations, and they're so big, they're everywhere. Like they're doing, the Coco Capitan collaboration, the big meme collaboration. They did recently.
Unskilled Worker now, which is amazing, I think.
Angelica Hicks, who does the cartoons,
yes.
Very fun. She did those, and even just keeping people. They're hitting all these bases. Even just having photography done by Petra Collins, who does these quite dreamy, beautiful things. You scroll through and.
I call it a
Glenn Luxford feel.
very eclectic, smart communication.
They all feel different, and you often, I don't know, I scroll through and often I see a lot from Gucci, and I think that they're different accounts. And I look and I see the little Gucci icon, and I think they've
have
still
so
got
much
me.
to say,
There's so
yeah.
much to say, yeah.
So they've made it a treasure hunt.
Yeah.
Because you're going to see something different,
Yeah.
so I see it at a different time than...
I'm convinced that they're Instagram geniusness, is that a word?
Yeah.
Is
Genius.
responsible for the 100% growth in millennial, because they speak your language.
Yeah,
Sorry,
maybe.
ladies, I can say your language, but she's a
I
big
haven't
one
looked
there.
at, I haven't looked at it.
So, yeah.
You can be safely sure that I haven't looked at their Instagram account.
We need to move on because people will accuse me to talk only about Gucci, but it's an important brand. We're talking Milan. It's part of the economy of Milan right now. And as we said before, I would like to discuss a little bit Prada show, which was rather interesting because it was a great hit. It was a little bit Miuccia again saying, okay, I'm taking back my territory. You can do whatever you want with it, but I did it before. I was here before. I loved it. I'm completely fond of Prada. Again, I also think that Miuccia, before everybody else, did this weird styling in her shows, but then you go to the store, even too much maybe with Prada, because sometimes you can't even find what you saw in a show, but then you go to the store and you can buy Prada and wear it your way. She's always been one of the trendsetters in fashion, and with this show, she reminded us.
I liked the sort of sense of militancy. It was kind of, I think Mrs. Prada's always very good, excellent when she's angry.
Do you think she was angry?
Yes.
Oh, that's very interesting.
Yeah. And I think that shows through this collection.
And she was angry at who?
I don't think at one person, but perhaps at the status quo, perhaps at many things to do with...
Is it more politics or yeah, exactly. So not angry at fashion, but angry at the world.
Yeah.
There's plenty to be angry about if we get outside of the fashion world that we're sitting in right now. There's plenty out there if you want to have a little bit. There's plenty to be angry about. I don't know Prada so well, and I know that on a recent panel we were talking about the business, and we know that there's certain brands that at very heart Prada had gone soft after reigning so big for so long. And if she is angry, I wonder whether she's angry at people forgetting about her importance a little bit, because she's been an important designer, and there's definitely been a softening from her importance within modern culture right now, and whether we're viewing her as being as relevant, if we talk about that being the line that we like to be able to cross. So you know, for her to go back, is that her way of saying, look at me, remember me? I don't know.
Trino, I'm interrupting you because you said that before and this now, and I would put them together. I think she didn't do anything wrong or forgettable as a designer. I think the company around that, contrary to what the company around Alessandro Michele, they didn't do the right thing.
Yeah.
So they didn't accept that you need to merchandise in a different way, to sell in a different way, to talk to your...
Be modern in the communication.
Exactly, and in the selling. And so
e-commerce.
She's probably also angry at her husband or whoever is responsible for this, because her fashion never disappointed, I think. Yeah. But then either you don't find it in store or it's not communicated enough, and so we forget. Yeah. It's the worst, the word you just...
Because other brands are being much better at that communication about who they're collaborating with, about being much more fun and perhaps, you know, and more accessible, like, you know,
fun.
In the last conversation we had about Prada, we talked about how they were so late to the digital and e-commerce world, and to their detriment.
Totally.
If Gucci's sales are coming largely from the growth of people saving up and buying it online, Prada couldn't do that. They didn't have the access. So,
definitely, yeah. And
so whether that's the anger...
It's not enough then to create an e-commerce period. You know, I know that at Gucci they have merchandising team for e-commerce only. So to know how it looks, you know, it's like, it's not enough to open a website and sell, you know, and so to go back to Miuccia, you're right, she's angry and she needs to come back into our memories. But it's not her fault, I think. I don't know. I mean, she probably decides things as well, but it's not the design that was lacking relevance, but the way the company is managed or whatever, presented.
One of the things that I always thought about Prada, and again, in a previous panel we talked about it, Prada has been the most controlled brand that I know, and to its compliment, we used to always say, you know, when I first started in fashion, would Prada do that? Because they were so in control of their image, there was so... Everything they did was always perfect and always exactly as they wanted it to be, and when you allow things to go digital, you lose control, and Michele has been embracing of that. Like, you know, Versace embraced all that. People now, modern companies embrace the fact that if you put imagery out there, people can do whatever they want with it, they can play with it, and it's not a comfort zone. It's not a comfort zone for Prada because they've naturally been
very controlling.
Very controlling. And that's probably been part of the reason why they held back. I was saying, if we put stuff out there, people can do whatever they want. And what did Gucci do? They looked at people doing their stuff and said, that's great, come and do it with us.
I hire you and I pay you to do it officially.
Yes.
That was so genius.
Yeah.
Instead of suing you, I'm going to pay you and make you famous.
Yeah.
And these people laugh.
And isn't that about a community? That's about growing your community instead of closing your community off.
It's about collaborating and not competing or not.
It's a very confident conversation to have.
But I also think, and correct me if I'm wrong, that the attitude of collaboration and bringing people in, you see it in the fashion, you see it in the way you sell your fashion, and that's what works today, because these, you know, this glass that say, we tell you and we do it, and you know, you're either in or out, then we'll keep people out.
Well, that I think becomes...
Does it make sense?
I mean, you've still got to keep things exclusive, but there's a sort of language of exclusivity that becomes not attractive because you're not allowed in. There is that wall, isn't there?
Exactly.
Whether it's the sales assistant in the shop making you feel really insecure, or it's totally out of your price range, or so there's that debate about exclusivity and inclusivity.
Yeah.
And I think the way that the language is parlayed, whether it's graphics or via chatbot, whatever it might be, is really crucial to keep a sense of warmth.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree, and I think you can still be exclusive, and you can still make people aspire to be part of it by including them. You know, it's because then it's about price, it's about, I mean, you've got a logo that has been around 100 years and it's always been, you know, the thing people aspire. So if you don't trash that, then yeah, it's very well said. It's about being inclusive without losing exclusivity. Good, so let's talk about what Milan is trying to do to bring up new, because we always said Milan, it's the big brand, it's very commercial, it's so boring, thank God for Prada, then Gucci came along, thank God for Gucci, Fendi reinvented it themselves, so thank God for Fendi. But this year there have been new designers in all brands and some new designers that finally are seen. I would like to start by the work that is done at Cavalli and Marni. So Paul Surridge at Cavalli, who I think did a great job in, it's a start, it's a beginning, it's never perfect, but I think he did a great job in maintaining that aura of sensuality at Cavalli, but stripping away the vulgarity that I must say, for me, was there completely. And so it's giving Cavalli again its niche, that it's not Versace, it's not whatever, but it's, you know, it's body conscious, it's a certain kind of woman, but it's getting more refined and more relevant. And did you see the show? Did you enjoy it? What did you think?
I mean, for me, Cavalli is just old Cavalli, and it'll take some time for me to move away from that mentally, I think. You know, obviously it's different. This, you know, you're lacking colour, you're lacking, you know, print, which is what Cavalli has always stood out for me.
Oh, it's a little bit too black and white, you think?
Yeah, it's a little bit. I mean, some of these...
With the zebra,
yeah, I need a bit of zebra. You put a bit of zebra in there and I'm okay. You put a bit of animal print in there and I'm okay. And that to me is again Cavalli. And some of this, I mean, it doesn't... It's a move away. You know, some of it...
Is it a move away for you? Too far?
It is, yeah. It is a move away. I mean, it's beautiful. It's very wearable. There are other people doing something that could fill this gap as well. Yeah. Some of this, you know, and maybe that's what they need to do, because I understand the market was tough. They have just Cavalli, who is doing so well, I think, on that bright print, because that's really where you want to spend your money. So you can get that really high summer fun element from which, if you call it slightly tacky, and I'm not disregarding that comment at all.
But that's
then I don't want to spend a lot of money on that. I want to spend it in just Cavalli. I think I want to get it for 30 to 50% less and really enjoy it, because it's a fun piece of clothing that I can wear when I'm on holiday, when I'm, you know, traveling around. But for spending this kind of money, I think I might go to Valentino. I think
it's very different. I mean, I would go to Valentino if I'm that kind of woman. You know, we were discussing, and this is about Milan, but we were discussing the same thing about Saint Laurent, where we said there is still that kind of woman who wants oversize and he's doing it very well. And I think Cavalli had gone a little bit too far in the trashy, very expensive trashy. And I disagree that it is so far. It's true, it's less colorful, but there is a lot of, I think there are some of the Cavalli shapes and, I don't know,
in the shapes,
consciousness, and I don't know. I think today relevance is very important, and this is close to refined. That maybe it's the furthest from Cavalli possible.
It is refined, but I suppose hanging it on a Cavalli hanger doesn't sing to me. I mean, I'm not saying I don't like the collection. I'm far more likely to wear this than Cavalli. I love it. You know, I love some of these dresses, but I don't know that I'll be spending that money in Cavalli. Because when you look at, and we go back to what really works, when you look at your wardrobe, I want to say, oh, look at that lovely red dress, it's Valentino, because I always think of a red dress as Valentino. And look at that great black leather outfit. It could be Saint Laurent. It could be like a tuxedo, you know, like, so you want those iconic pieces from brands. And even if, you know...
Do you? I mean, do the new consumers want that? That's a good question.
Don't know, yeah.
Well, I don't have a precise opinion, but I wonder if that's still a thing.
I mean, brands do reinvent themselves. Yeah. They do. I just don't know that I'm ready to see that Cavalli has right now.
I kind of liked the old trashy Cavalli thing, and I feel like
So you miss it?
I think I'd rather buy an old trashy piece of Cavalli than this quite refined halter neckline. I don't think that I'd be interested in that.
Yeah, probably where you guys are right is that it's, you know, there are other brands. We didn't need
other brands.
This. Yeah. But when you need to save a brand, I don't know.
With a piece of, like with a zebra trench, like
It's very
that's
cavalry,
amazing.
I think.
Yeah, great. I'd buy a trench coat that's full zebra. I don't think I'd ever buy a dress that has like a hint of zebra on it. Like if you're gonna wear zebra,
No.
Just wear zebra.
wear zebra. Yeah, be a full zebra.
I hear you.
Yeah.
So let's see next season or when the first results go, or if to see if
Bring back full zebra.
Paul is going to be, you know, re-signed for next season because now they get fired after one collection. So,
It's hard.
so let's talk about Francesco Risso at Marni. What is it? Is second
More, I think.
or third? So, yeah, probably third or fourth. Yeah, I mean, I liked it from the beginning, but maybe because I love Prada so much, so I
love this
said it.
collection.
It's still very Pradesque, but the guy grew up there. I mean, that's his school. Does he remind you of Marni? If you were a Marni client,
Yes.
so more than
Yes.
Search for Cavalli.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm very comfortable with this.
You love it, and do you miss Castiglione, or you think this is more modern?
No, I'm happy to see something new and evolving within the brand name, and I think it feels right for the brand, and yeah, I think it doesn't look easy, but I don't think it's meant to on the catwalk. They're obviously trying to show that they are pushing a few boundaries in silhouettes.
Marni's never really been easy, because even when you go to the store with something in mind, then you try it on and like, it really looks
How do I wear
good,
this?
you know, so it's not very easy. It's never been, but what do you think, Harry?
I think it looks really fresh. I like the concept. I like the kind of awkwardness of it, but it's still got beauty. You know, the corset, the outsized prom dresses. There's a lot going on.
If you were,
It feels confident as well, doesn't it?
if you see one of these images in a magazine without reading the caption, do you say, oh, that's a lovely Prada coat? Or do you say, oh, new Marni? I'm provoking a discussion here.
Maybe you'd be attracted first to the print or the shape rather than
So you don't
trying
care,
to
yeah.
second guess.
Yeah, I'm comfortable though. If you said it was Marni, I'd be like, oh yeah, of course it is. I mean, there's some great pieces. I just saw that patchwork coat. I mean, there's some great pieces in there, which I think the Marni customer and new customers that are just really driven by this bright, colourful, fun trend that we're in will find pieces to wear there.
Yeah, I absolutely love it as well. So, but yeah, but my question, I'm asking these questions because I think, is there room for all of this, you know? So you just walk in front of a window and you fall in love with that pink skirt, and then you go in because you like that skirt. You don't think, oh, I'm going to Marni, because there's so much. And many brands are in the same trend and in the same, it's very hard to fight for some recognition actually in business.
Yeah, I mean, hypothetically, it would be a brilliant exercise to block out all the signage on, for example, Bond Street, and see what pulled people in through the window without recognition of a brand.
Do you have someone in mind that you think will be recognizable?
Maybe a lot would be sort of interchangeable, unless you knew the geography of the street.
Yeah. Yeah. Imagine it, you're parachuted on Bond Street or Sloane Street or whatever, or inside of Selfridges, and there's no signs. I have a few ideas who I recognize.
You would
I think you recognize Saint Laurent.
from your Gucci.
You recognize Gucci. You recognize Prada, but it could be Marni, vice versa. It's not Miucci's fault.
I think you'd also recognise Max Mara, because it'd be the most wardrobe-safe, sensible thing out there.
Yeah. And I also think that thanks to go to another new couple in a standing brand is Lucy and Luke Meyer for Jill Sander. I thought it was, well, we did a panel on that, so everybody knows I thought it was an extraordinary, it was safe, but it was extraordinary, relevant, modern, respectful of the brand.
Almost spiritual.
And very, it was so chic. And so it was a little bit the raw of Europe in a way. And I think there is room for this.
Yep.
And we would recognize that, right?
Yeah.
And there are still lots of customers who, doesn't matter what the trends are looking at, they're still looking at this going, that's how I wear my clothes, that's how I want to look.
Yeah.
That's
but look at this, we're looking at this, and I also think that in a Milan that was quite over the top and bling bling, This, you feel you've been parachuted in a different season, in a different world.
Different world.
And that was quite interesting because, again, as you were saying before, they say, this is who we are, we can't do anything different. Even if everybody's doing prints and color and crazy and overwhelming, this is who we are, this is what we think Jill
Cuts
Sanders
through
should
the
do.
noise of everything else. It feels
I
clean.
absolutely
and-
love it.
Yeah.
It's interesting you say the row of Europe, because presumably the row wanted to be the Jill Sander of
America. That's a good point,
Yeah.
yeah. And they are, right?
Yeah, we had that conversation earlier, just saying there's still brands out there, they're not hot brands that we talk about, but they're doing just great clothes. They're still delivering and, you know, doing what they do and doing it well.
And doing it well, yes. So what do we think of the newcomers that they're not 20 years old, they've been around for a while, but this season I think they stood up. Let's start from Arthur Arbesser. Did you see the show? Do you know about Arthur Arbesser?
Nothing.
I think he's starting to have a signature. I think sometimes he's trying a little bit too hard, but I think he's one to watch.
Is he a Viennese designer?
Viennese, yeah, but lives in Milan. I think he's very highly crafted, something quite poetic about his work.
A little bit ladylike.
Yeah, sort of ladylike, blue stocking.
I think with a heel now.
Did you say blue stocking?
Yeah, a little artsy.
Yeah, that's who he is, actually.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know him personally, but I know that he's, you know, an aristocratic, he lives in this aristocratic kind of Viennese. You imagine him giving balls in his beautiful apartment in the center of Milan, which I don't know if he gives balls, but he lives in a beautiful apartment in the center of Milan. And you can see it in his fashion. I mean, am I drawn to it? No. But I think there is room for what he does.
I mean, if it's authentic to him and if he knows the woman that he's talking to, and, you know, that's his lifestyle, that's the kind of the women, and if he can communicate it, again, you know, there's, it's great clothes, there's nothing wrong with it. Is there enough stuff out there for people to be drawn either to the big singing brands that are able to advertise and connect with them? I mean, or are people...
I don't know the prices of this. I don't know if any of you have looked into that, but I don't know if there is room for this. Why that instead of, you know, sometimes...
At the same time, people want to discover more niche brands.
For the sake of
maybe
change, yeah.
a more seemingly intimate connection with the designer, whether that means they meet them or, you know, they want to find something
new,
individual and new.
Yeah, something that they feel represents and talks about them more so than the design house.
Yeah.
Because we do wear clothes to represent us. Like, you know, we represent ourselves with who we're wearing, and what somebody says what you're wearing, you want to be able to say, we all love to be able to say, oh, this is really old, like 12 years old, I've had it for this long, or I'm wearing a new design.
A new guy from Milan.
Nobody else knows. It gives some kind of understanding of your personality, which is communicated through what you're wearing.
Absolutely, absolutely. And yeah, so this, I think it's one of the brands that I think is going to be around for a while, and we have to keep an eye on. And the other one that I thought did a very good job was Marco De Vincenzo. Marco De Vincenzo has been working at Fendi for many years, so he's backed now by LVMH, so he can be breathing financially. He is more in that Roman side of Italy, bold, you know, Valentino Fendi Bulgari kind of, you know, far from minimalism world. I think he's doing an incredibly good job.
I do too.
And this show, I think, was probably one of the first time where I really noticed, and I'm like, wow, this was really good.
And I think this definitely has a customer, because we talk about, I mean, I love Fendi as well, and Valentino and all those big Italian brands. To look at the clothes, they're exquisite, but I'm a different customer. If I was younger, I'd want to be wearing not the brand that my mother might have worn. You know, you want to be wearing something a bit more of an age group for you. And I think that's what he does. You know, he's got that more, he's probably more socializing with that kind of age group of woman, that girl who wants to be able to go out. And...
He's not that young, so I think he is in his late 30s. I mean, I wish I were, but he's not a 22, 23, yeah. But yeah, but it's probably in the Alessandro Michele kind of age bracket, and so they are. I think there are some hints of where he grew up with. I like the joyfulness, the colors.
Joyful, and he's brilliant at sort of kinetic qualities, you know, ruffles and fringes and very tactile quality. It's very sensory in every level, colour, print, textures, and I think he's brilliant at that.
He's doing good accessories.
You'd want to go out dancing immediately.
Yes,
you would.
True.
Yeah.
True. Yeah, and he's good doing good accessories because that's what he does. I think at Fendi, he's the accessory designer, right? That he works in the accessory side of the.
I'm not sure, but he's very good at the accessories. I mean, they're really desirable and really different to, you know, I think what other people are doing.
I think this collection was so desirable, and it helped Milan to stand out a little bit. And I also thought that what happened in Milan this season was, yes, a little bit safe, yes, rather commercial, but still desirable. And there is a difference between boring commercial and commercial desirable. And let's face it, you know, when people need to sell to survive, because as we said, there is so much and so everywhere, that was quite a smart way of presenting. You're very quiet, ladies.
There we are.
You make my job very hard. Massimo Giorgetti, MSGM. MGSM, yes.
I love this brand. I think it's great. Yeah. It has a lot of spirit, energy. It's a much more accessible price point. You know.
So it's a contemporary level, right?
Level. Yeah. I think they constantly renew with, like, you know, many collections, many drops per season. Yeah, and it's always on point.
Does he have many drops per season?
I think so, yeah, yeah.
I think it's quite merchandising.
It doesn't follow, hold on, I didn't know that, so yeah, sorry, I'm totally unprepared.
I mean, I think there's, you know, 4 collections a year with the 2 resort, plus extra. I think it's very well calibrated.
I met him personally. He's a very nice guy. He's he's a very interesting guy. He knows exactly what he wants to do, and I think he's doing really well, right?
What do you think his mission is? What's his vision?
Well, let me put it like this. He did Pucci for 2 seasons, right? And I thought it was probably the best Pucci of the past years. It didn't last. I don't know why. I didn't know if he didn't get along with Laudomia or if it didn't work. I don't know. But when I met him right after he left Pucci, and I didn't know if there was, and it was very, you know, normal about that. There was no acrimosity. And he also said to me that that's what's important. I really need to dedicate time to my brand because it's doing really well. And so there is a moment now where, you know, brands, they do well and then they have to go to the next step. And Trino knows that well because she worked with brands like that all her life. And so he said, my brand needs me. And when I was doing Pucci, it was too much. Yeah. So I think we will hear of this more because it's doing really well and it's in that price bracket that works. I think it's that style that young people are like, ooh, cool, you know, cooler than...
I mean, the investment isn't so much, because, you know, you can...
What did you say, sorry?
The investment isn't so much, because you're not buying a coat which is $4,000. You're buying something which is $800, you know, and you'll be able to have more fun with it, without it just being for that very rich lady.
You're doing these big, great, big kind of bold coloured coats, and they're more like 400, 500, some I've seen. And that kind of feels like, okay, it's a lump, but it feels like I could do that.
It's like an alternative, a little bit like what Coach is doing now in, what Coach are doing now in America, you know.
D&G used to be in a way, that price level, which I think is really smart.
But it's not a diffusion line, so you want it, you know, it's not like D&G, it's the brand.
It's tongue-in-cheek, it's kind of unpretentious, it has the right notes, I think.
Do you think it's Italian chic? I think it's more creative than that.
I think it feels bolder than Italian chic. It feels
bolder, you said?
Bolder.
Oh, bolder, yes. I think the shapes are more, are more dairy, you know, are more creative.
But it is young. I mean, you know, that's definitely young. You know, it's puffball arms and socks worn with heels. You know,
and a bit of streetwear.
Yeah, it is. It's got a streetwear. Yeah, it's got a streetwear element to it, which actually, you know, you can mix it with sportswear. You can mix it with even, you know, he's really throwing a lot of young ideas together.
My only problem with this, if I have a problem, I looked at these other shows, is that I'm not sure he has decided exactly what the brand stands for. So it is young, it's fun, it's more dairy, it's the right price point. But to go back to that, and does it matter? Do we recognize it? You know, like I think Marco De Vincenzo has more of a signature.
Yeah.
And I'm probably from that generation where that still matters.
Yeah.
Does this matter, I'm asking you? Do you care about people recognizing what you're wearing?
Yeah, it was really interesting what you're saying about Arta's clothing. You think you want to buy into that background. And when you talked a bit about his background, I thought, that's interesting. That's something that feels romantic to me. Buying a coat from MS Jim doesn't feel like you're buying into a story. Yeah. It's just a coat.
Does that matter?
It's a nicely done coat. It's bold. It says something. You'd feel good in it, but I wouldn't feel that feeling that you were saying before. Saying,
the emotional attachment, you know, and you want to be able to elaborate on. Yeah. I bought this. You know, the designer is.
And I thought about it.
Yeah.
We talked or whatever. Yeah.
The designer has a name, has a history, has a kind of story behind them that you can associate yourself with, you know. So.
But especially when they're young and they just started, they can't have a heritage because they're 4 or 5 years young as a brand and
but they have a story.
But that's something
they do have a story.
They do have a story, but you can also create it. I'm thinking about some new brands in London. They managed to create a story in the first 2 seasons. And you know, I don't want to mention them now, but it's this or that or that. I think if I were advising Massimo, I would say it's lovely, it's doing fine, but do you want to be a brand or not? You know, do you have, we need to recognize you.
Yesterday on our London Roundup panel, people were talking very much about these young brands, and they'd created this girl, and it became kind of like a saying that everyone was saying, the Molly Goddard girl or the Marcus Almeida girl. And I think that would be something that if they want to cultivate something and create a brand, create your girl. Have an idea of who that person is, and then the person will come.
Very well said, because he probably doesn't have a girl, does
he? I don't think so.
No. And it's even the name of the brand. I mean, I can never remember the way around.
I just said it wrong.
But I do the same thing.
I always think Massimo Giorgetti, so I say MG, but actually the G comes so, I
do it the same way. It's hard to pin the whole narrative and the whole story when you're kind of like, you've got a couple of letters and you can't, you know, we've put this, I mean, Alexander McQueen. It sounds grand and it sounds like Lee McQueen on its own, not so much, you know?
I agree.
But
Alexander and Lee.
They're different people.
Totally different people,
And and you know, you look at the name of a brand and it signifies everything about it. You know, you want to be able to fall into it. Molly Goddard, we know what Molly is. You know, Molly is that girl, which really helps, you know, and she's that carefree.
By the way, she is Molly
She is
Goddard.
that girl. She's that girl.
Her brand is fantastic.
Which is great, because that's what I mean. We can all identify and see it very clearly.
I never love acronym for brand names, you know, just call it with a name or call it something.
It's helpful having a name and a person, then you already have that idea of what they're doing and cultivating, and that is aspirational in itself, just like having that icon for the brand.
I'm very happy to hear that still matters, you know. I thought you would say, oh, I don't really care. It's just a talk and I want to... because I believe in that. I believe if there has to be an industry, if there has to be a fashion week or whatever, let's talk about brands. You know, it's not only about a red coat or a zebra coat, as you said. And
particularly when you're picking and choosing about what you want to buy and what you can possibly buy, that really does matter. It has to be something special.
So do we have a final word about what Milan stood for in this whole month or in this whole universe of fashion, where we've seen the results of LVMH and Kering? They're doing pretty well. I mean, it's still back in the growing side of the business. I mean, you have a final word?
I mean, I've always thought, again, you know, it's that thing that there are certain, London's always been a vibrant, exciting market for fashion. Paris is obviously the ideal. Everybody eventually wants to get there because it's seen as the pinnacle. New York has been the contemporary, modern, sporty kind of hub. And Milan has just been kind of the old stable of massive brands, which have been there. We know they're huge. We know that on there's a luxury store in every city of every one of those brands, and they come slightly in and out of favour. You know, Valentino suddenly became beautiful again, but it's for niche because it's very expensive. It's for, you know, the very rich. You know, and I think about 3-4 years ago, we were all talking about what was the point of Milan, because nobody really wanted to drag himself there. They all dragged themselves there because it was advertising spend.
Yeah, and then the shoe and handbag.
Yeah, it was shoe and handbag, and you know, I said this before, Michele kind of kick-started really the Gucci era again, and it was that kind of like, oh, Milan, we've all just got to swing in and swing out of it, but there was nothing happening in fashion. It was just there. Gucci's, the results are proving it wrong, you know, and Gucci's obviously rekindled. I don't know how many, I mean, Prada's always been there, it's been solid. It's been almost this heavy hum for so long that although it's a very successful brand, nobody's all of a sudden writing big articles on Prada all the time because it's reinventing the fashion world. It's keeping itself.
Yeah, but Mutual has always had a place in the heart of the critics because she is putting out new trends, and young people are keeping an eye on Mutual. You know,
it's solid, isn't it? Solid and it's consistent. But you don't get that great big, oh my God, it's all about
Vedmo moment.
Yeah, I was going to say Vedmo moment. You know,
But there is still such a difference, I think, in the way that Prada and Gucci just come across. Prada still just feels, you know, aspirational and wonderful, and you look at Prada and you think one day, but with Gucci you think today. And I think
that's growing.
Yeah,
that's exactly why it's growing.
Yeah,
that's very interesting.
Yeah, I'll buy the Valentino piece one day, if I've ever got anywhere to wear it.
But that's another point, and I think today you can almost go in whatever you want, wherever you want. I mean, I probably wouldn't show up to Starbucks for my coffee in a Valentino gown, but
I'm not going anywhere.
But people actually wear whatever they want.
Don't bat an eyelid.
No, especially in London. I mean, probably in Paris, people would look at you a little bit more like this. But London, especially East London, it's quite liberating.
Yeah, it's true. So yeah, I don't know how long, I suppose as long as Gucci is hot, then people are going to be going back and forward to Milan. But I do think they've got to rethink about what's going to be new for Milan. It's got what's going to be.
I'm looking forward to next season because I think this season started something.
Hopefully
something is happening.
Hopefully it won't just be Gucci that's like keeping that flame alive. That will. I mean, I think Gucci's doing great stuff, but I think
we mentioned a few of those that can help.
And some of the newcomers. So maybe it's a season for Milan about staking out your territory.
Let's see. Thank you, panel.
Thank you.